Considering his actions just this year alone, Vince McMahon doesn't come across as the most ethical of people. He released or furloughed a reported 40% of WWE staff just to maintain profit projections. He filed for bankruptcy for the XFL, despite reportedly investing nowhere near the $300 million he promised to partners, and at one point he tried to push ahead with a normal live broadcast schedule for Raw, SmackDown and NXT, just to appease WWE's TV contracts, despite that being totally against current health and safety guidelines. It's so much stuff in just the last few months, it's easy to forget McMahon's alleged involvement in a murder cover-up in the early 80s. In 1983, 23-year-old Nancy Argentino died from a serious head injury after being rushed to hospital from the motel room of her boyfriend Jimmy Snuka. The autopsy also showed more than 24 cuts and bruises across her body. Snuka, at the time, was one of the biggest stars in the WWF. He was never charged at the time, which he later speculated as to why in his ghost-written 2012 autobiography. I went with Vince McMahon Jr. to either a court or law office, I don't remember which because I was still in shock. All I remember is he had a briefcase with him. I don't know what happened. I think Vince Jr. picked me up from the hotel and took me there. He didn't say anything to me. I don't know if he gave Nancy's family money or anything. McMahon's lawyers have always denied any involvement from him in Argentino's death, but a new report from David Bixenspan for Mel magazine uncovers a new detail to the events leading up to her tragic demise. Following that excellent Dark Side of the Ring series on Vice TV, which had one episode exploring the Snuka case, Bixenspan has focused in on a domestic violence incident between Jimmy and Nancy less than 4 months before her death, where a drunk Snuka not only attacked Argentino, but also fought off multiple police who tried to arrest him. The police report shows that Nancy was willing to press charges on the night of the incident, but had changed her mind the next morning after Vince McMahon tried to talk her out of making the complaint against Snuka. Bixenspan reached out to one of the officers involved in the case, Sergeant Peter Bronsted, who said while he doesn't remember McMahon's involvement, he notes he did deal with someone claiming to be Snuka's manager, who showed up to post bail, going on and on about how he needed to be able to wrestle the next night. Bronsted, describing a shorter, older man wearing a hat, remembers being pissed off and quoting the manager a figure of $25,000 for Snuka's bail, which would actually turn out to be just $5,000. The manager would quickly reply that the much larger figure, one which amounts to almost $66,000 with inflation, wasn't an issue. Bixenspan concludes the piece summarizing McMahon may have helped facilitate the cycle of abuse that kept Nancy Argentino in Jimmy Snuka's company and potentially gave Superfly the opportunity to kill her. After campaigning from the Argentino family, Snuka was charged with third-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter in 2015, over 30 years since Nancy's death. He was deemed not mentally competent to stand trial though, and died from stomach cancer in 2017. Roman Reigns pulled out of his WrestleMania Blue Universal Championship match just 10 days before the show. WWE hasn't once properly addressed the reason for his absence on TV since, and has skittered between banning all mention of his name on commentary to then allowing FS1 to air a Reigns 1-hour special this past Tuesday. The Wrestling Observer claims Vince's mind changes daily on how to handle the situation. Roman only overcame his second bout with leukemia just last year, which is thought to be the main driver behind him pulling out of all future shows, as those with the condition are reportedly far more susceptible to serious complications from Steve Corino. But in a new interview with TMZ, Roman has revealed the real reason is to protect his family. A lot of people think that it was based off of my health and the history of my fight against leukemia, but just talking to my doctors and stuff, I actually am fine, and my immune system is good. I try to keep it private in this crazy world, but my children. I just had 2 newborn twins, twin boys, 8 weeks old, so I had to make a decision from them. I feel like I have an obligation not only to my family and to myself, but to my community, and also to set the example. Because at the end of the day, we can do a lot of different things and say a lot of different things, but it's through our actions that really speak volumes, and that's what I'm trying to do. It's a very different tact from WWE, who rather than lead by example, are just ignoring that the world is currently ending. But sometimes that decision isn't up to them. This year's SummerSlam is meant to be taking place in Boston on the 22nd of August, which includes the usual weekend-long festivities of Friday Night SmackDown, an NXT TakeOver, and Monday Night Raw, all at the city's TD Garden. But now Boston's mayor, Marty Walsh, has revealed all large-scale gatherings like parades and festivals that are permitted by the city are suspended through Labor Day. In the interest of public health, no permits will be issued for an event before the 7th of September that could draw a large crowd. Walsh does follow up, saying for smaller events we will be looking at them on a case-by-case basis as we move through the summer months, so perhaps there is a limited capacity version of SummerSlam that could still go ahead. But he does warn if your event brings crowds together in close contact, you should start looking at alternatives now. Neither WWE or the TD Garden venue have issued a statement on SummerSlam. What do you think will happen with SummerSlam? Let me know in the comments down below, because I'll be replying to people from out of quarantine, where I've also been watching last night's episode of SmackDown, which I've got a review of in about 4 minutes. Thanks for your support on Patreon. No one names their kid this anymore. Larry. The show opened on the big-time grudge match between Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose. I'm so happy to not be saying that ironically. It was more vocal than physical though, with the two using shouts instead of actual moves, like they're working over each other's voice boxes. Sonya rolled up Mandy for the surprise win, which Michael Cole put over as Deville's stealing a victory, despite it being totally within the rules. Hopefully this isn't the blow-off, as their feud deserves a much bigger payoff. Lucha House Party teamed with the New Day to take on the team of the Forgotten Sons and Miz and Morrison in a really fun 8-man tag, with the good guys at one point playing a game of Super Splash Bros. There were loads of dives, nasty ranas by the Lucha House Party, Forgotten Sons wiping out the New Day on the outside, and Miz picking up the win with the skull-crushing finale, after being his team's weak link the past month. This was a really fun bout, and the chaotic finish excitingly built the tag title match for this Sunday. Kayla Braxton interviewed King Corbin backstage, and Renee Young welcomed back Jeff Hardy for his big return, despite already kind of returning before WrestleMania. Sheamus came out to interrupt, and the two brawled with Jeff Hardy standing tall. Universal Champion Braun Strowman had a face-to-face showdown with Bray Wyatt, where Wyatt again tried to bring Strowman back into the family by offering him the Black Sheep mask. Both men were pretty good here, although Braun's promo style is a bit overly scripted, and he turned down Bray by saying he'll beat him this Sunday. Bye! I really like doing this. It felt like there was a lot more subtext and substance to this story, and that they've only just scratched the surface of their feud so far, implying Braun retains to bring out the theme for it to continue after Money in the Bank. Sasha Banks and Bayley took on Tamina and Lacey. Oh my god, what the hell is that? Kill it with fire! In a standard tag match, which saw Tamina kick out of a Bayley to belly and elbow drop and pin the women's champion. This was okay, but I find it very difficult to take Tamina as a serious title contender. Years and years of failed pushes, and that she's neither that charismatic or good in the ring is a tough hill to climb. And the main event saw King Corbin's new mid-card of evil take on Daniel Bryan, Drew Gulak, and Otis. Sorry, Tucker Giannetti. This was a standard tag match, which finished with Corbin pinning Gulak with the Deep Six. That's not even his finisher! The closing angle was pretty decent though, with Corbin, Bryan, and Otis brawling to climb a ladder and symbolically unhook the Money in the Bank briefcase. Otis is so dense, however, the ladder rungs kept breaking as he tried to step up, meaning Corbin got to stand tall. Because maybe, not even the Money in the Bank briefcase can escape the pull of Baron Corbin's mid-card vortex. That was this week's SmackDown in about 4 minutes. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below and click the eye above my head to give your rating. SmackDown posted its worst Fox rating ever last week, and this likely won't perform any better. It was a solid build for Money in the Bank, but it was also totally missable. This week's SmackDown is a SmackDowner. What isn't missable in any way, however, is the brand new episode of El Facador Laurie Blake's Wrestling Explained series on Parts Unknown. Here's a clip.
A demon-masked warrior strides to the ring, shock of red hair from a headdress falling either side of golden horns, katana clutched in one hand. The ogre mask is lifted, the face beneath also painted into the grimace of an Oni, as this fierce combatant lands strike after strike. Opponents who weather the storm still end up getting wet though, as a jet of impossible green fog emanates from tinted jaws, the victim's vision swimming as emerald envelops their irises and then begins to pour over their pupils. The last thing they see before the light is blocked completely is a grinning demon bearing down.
Then you are going to know once and for all that you have met the devil.
The Asian Mist, or the Poison Fog, or Dokugiri, has an almost 40-year history of blinding, burning and paralysing wrestlers across America and overseas. But while seemingly a mystical ability that emanates from the Far East and has been mastered by a select few, with even fewer having the necessary gland to produce their own poison, the actual origins of the Asian Mist are far humbler, a suburban kitchen in the good old US of A. So where does it come from? What is it even made of? What exactly is it supposed to do, and why is it so closely tied to Asian wrestlers? I'm Laurie, hailing from Parts Unknown, and this is the Poison Mist Explained.